Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Fix Computers. I've got a 2015 15-inch MacBook Pro Retina here that needs a new keyboard. It's a very worn keyboard, as you can see. The customer has given it a quick clean before bringing it in, because when I diagnosed this thing the other week, it was filthy. And it was at the point where I had to say to the customer, just, look, dude, you need to keep your laptop cleaner, because that dirt and grime is what has killed your keyboard. So yeah, keep it clean or keep paying money to get it fixed, basically. So yeah, what we've got to do is replace the keyboard on this. It's going to be quite a mission. We've got to strip the whole laptop out. So recently I did a video on doing this on a MacBook Air. This is kind of going to be a very similar story, but we'll show the disassembly process for the 15-inch Retina instead. So I'm going to gear up and we'll get ready to do this. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with a 1.2mm pentalobe screwdriver, which is the security screwdriver you need for the screws on the back of these guys. And we're going to get the back panel off. Ugh. Ugh. There was a puff of dust. Ugh. Ugh. I'm moving my tea away. It's a £2,000 laptop. Just. Okay. I'm just gonna take this straight to the back door and airline it clean. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've airlined off the worst of it. There's still a lot of just schmutz all over this thing, but we'll take that all off and clean it all as we go. All the surface dust has been blown off, so at least it's not... I don't know if you spotted it when I opened the lid, and it literally went out of both sides. I was like, let's get on with it. Right, so battery disconnect. So... the keyboard is underneath the logic board. We don't need to remove the battery to do this, which is good because the battery is glued down. So that guy's a real animal to get out. So we do have to take out everything else though. So first I'm going to answer my phone. Right, I'm going to start by removing the flex cables here. So we're on to T5 screws now. And I think it's T5 all the way down. So take these little covers off and remove the flex joiner ribbons, take the SSD out, just taking out all the little bits that are on top of the laptop that are in our way. Okay, so that's everything that is connecting the logic board. Oh, we've got another guy over here. Not sure who this is, but it's another wire. Oh, that's going to be microphones. Cool. So we've disconnected all the wires. So the next thing I'm going to do is, do I need to take off the cooling system? I don't think I do. So yeah, we're going to unscrew the fans, and then unscrew the logic board screws, and I think we'll be able to lift off the cooling system and the logic board as a single piece. We could take that all off. We could unscrew all of these, take all that off, redo all the thermal paste and stuff like that. In fact, I'm going to do that anyway, because it almost certainly, this thing has almost certainly been cooking with all of that dust in it. Whoa, those guys are stronger than I remember. So it'll probably be a good thing to redo all the thermal paste anyway. It's good practice. So, cool. Those hold down springs, they're a lot more vicious than I remember. Right, I think we can take out the heatsink now. this cable guide that the wireless antennas and such go through, that guide just clips on. If you just bend this leg outwards slightly, he will just unhook from the DC board over here. There we go. Heatsink off. Oh god, just see these stains. That's just stuff. That puddles of stuff. Yeah, it's a good. This thing needed to be stripped to be cleaned. So it's going to be a long job. This one. I'm not looking forward to it. Such is. Okay, right. So now I'm going to take out the fans. And I think we're ready to take out the logic board now. There's nothing else holding it in. Oh, the MagSafe connector is still screwed in. Right, so logic board screws, one in the middle, two at the back, and one under the SSD. And now I'm just going to do a test lift. I'm not sure if I've got everything yet, so I'm just going to get one side of the board and just start lifting it. Yeah, that's moving. It's not resisting. If you start lifting something and it's resisting, then just give it a bit of a lift and just see where you're getting held up. See where it's bending at. Yeah, there we go. And we're out. Right, how does the other side of this look? Yeah, more dust around the back end. I'll just brush that off. However, very disappointingly, one of the screw hard points has just fallen off. That was for the fan, so it's not a critical one. I may or may not solder that back on. Because it's a fan, it's really not critical. However, I have soldered these on a board before, so I may solder it back on because I can. But we'll see. Just testing the other ones just to see if any of them come off in my fingers. No, I think we're good. Right, where's my toothbrush? Oof, okay, that's the worst of that off. That's all I'm going to do in terms of cleaning there, I think. I'm not going to sterilize this thing. If I had an ultrasonic cleaner, I'd probably put it through the ultrasonic, but I don't have one of those. So we're not going to. Right, we're starting to get somewhere now. We can see the back of the keyboard. There's the backlight for it. So now I'm going to take off these black bits here, these little tray things. These are just part of the air guides, which just guide air from the fans through the heatsink. So that one is screwed on, and then it just kind of it just comes off. It's got a little bit of stickiness on it. Whoop. And the other guy is not screwed in. If it's not apparent, I haven't taken one of these apart for quite a long time, so I'm a bit rusty. All things considered, I'm very rusty with Retinas in general. I don't know why. Retinas intimidate me. I don't see them that often. Well, I'll rephrase that. I don't take them apart that often, so I just don't quite have that experience confidence. I'm just brushing out more junk as we go. However, once we've got the keyboard out of this, we'll give it a proper clean. I/O board, and I will take the speakers out as well. Then I can't remember if we need to get this battery part out or not. We'll find out when we get there. Right, I can't remember how much offence the speakers put up. So I'm just going to unscrew these and see what happens. They're quite easy to remove on the 13-inch models. Oh, yeah, there we go. Just a quick prying tool under there. No problem. Okay, I think we've got enough clearance to the keyboard now to start working on that. So the keyboard is comprised of several layers. Let's come in now. I should have been doing a more close-up shot during this, but I forgot. Sorry about that. Okay, so the keyboard has got several layers in it. We've got this back black plastic layer. which is the backlight. So you can see the power cable up here for that. Then underneath that, there is a white separator layer, I think. And then we've got a plastic diffuser. Now, I believe I'm just going to go and get the replacement keyboard because I think I have a new backlight for this. I was certain that I ordered a backlight because it normally only costs it usually costs another £5 or £10 to get a replacement backlight with the new keyboard. But I seem to have misplaced it, or I've picked up a completely different one. I've got a replacement keyboard here, but yeah, I don't have a backlight, so I need to try and take this backlight off and preserve it in as best condition as I can. Not sure what's happened to that. I recommend buying a replacement keyboard with a backlight. I buy my keyboards from eBay, and usually you can find them with or without a replacement backlight. I recommend replacing it because then you can just rip all of this off and you don't need to worry about trying to keep it in good nick. However, I'm actually going to have to be a little bit careful. So I'm going to pick up the sides here where it's just folded down around the keyboard. I don't need to keep it in pristine condition because it's not like it's going to fall out, but obviously the less damage I do, the better. Right, this is starting to peel up now. There we go, now we're moving. Oh, it's going to be pretty grot. But it's fine. Okay, let's get this off. So I'm literally just peeling this off, leaving just the keyboard there now. Let's see what happens. Right, I think I need to be able to work under this battery board. So I'm just going to undo the screws for that. The battery will not come out because it's stuck down and I really don't want to remove it. However, if I remove these two screws, we should get, yeah, we've got some play in this board now. So I can just lift that slightly and get the backlight out from underneath it. There's a sticker over everything. Get out. Ugh. There we go. Ditch that. There we go, there's the backlight. Ooh. Oh, there's a lot of grot there. This thing will clean up. I would much prefer to replace this. However, as I say, I can't find the one I've ordered, and this has got to go out today. I found it. I did order a new one. Found the original box, and there is a nice shiny new backlight. So now we don't have to bother trying to recover this one. So what I could have done, I could have used some. I could have used a a brush and a cloth just to wipe this down and clean the worst of the gunk off of it. It's mostly just dust and dirt and grit that's in this thing. So yeah, we could have just made good with that and then put that back on, and it'll still put out light. That's all it has to do. However, as I say, when you're ordering your keyboard, usually there's two options. You can buy just a bare keyboard on its own, or you can buy one that comes with a backlight for another £10 or about $10. And trust me, putting on a nice shiny backlight is so much nicer than putting the grotty one back in. And plus, if the computer has ever been liquid damaged or anything like that, you're going to appreciate the old backlight may not work properly anyway. You might have uneven lighting where half the keyboard lights up and the other half doesn't or something. Right, so that's going down there on the floor. So now we've got to get out the keyboard itself, and that's just covered in grit and stuff. It's just, oh, it's horrible. So what we're going to do with this keyboard is riveted in. In the old days, there used to be, about 65 or 70 screws in this. However, on the Retinas, they're all riveted in. And literally, the way to remove these is to quite literally tear the keyboard out from the laptop. Now, this will send the rivets flying. So here's a hot tip that I got from a commenter very recently. This was a comment on the MacBook Air keyboard replacement video that I did recently from some chap. Sorry, I've forgotten your name. He said, dude, put some tape across the back of the keyboard, put some masking tape across it, and that'll catch all the rivets as they come out. I tried it the other week on another MacBook Air. It changed my world. So yeah, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get just some ordinary masking tape, and we're just going to mask up the back of the keyboard. Go away, phone. Good grief. There we go. So I've masked off the back of the keyboard. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my prying tool, I'm going to dig it down the side of the keyboard, and I'm literally just going to wrench up the side of the keyboard. So bearing in mind, this keyboard is being replaced, so we literally do not care how much we damage this keyboard now. However, one thing I will also do is I'm going to open the laptop up, and I'm going to open it to 90 degrees and hang it off the back of my counter. So that way the screen is now off the side of the counter, and as I dig down, there's no risk of me accidentally digging into the screen at all. We could just remove the display assembly at this point. There'd only be a couple more screws, but it's fine. We'll just hang it off the side. So, prying tool, I'm going to start in a corner. I'm going to dig down here and just get under the keyboard and just wrench those rivets out. Ooh, there we go. That one just pinged off and hit me in the forehead. Wear glasses or safety specs or something like that. You know, be sensible. Okay, so there's another one. Once we get this on a run, it gets easier. It's just the start that's difficult. There we go. Okay, now we've got it on a run. Now we're going to go for the big rip. So I'm going to roll up my sleeves. I'm going to have to hold this battery board to one side as we go past it. However, I'm literally just going to tear this out. Here we go. Be careful of sharp edges. God, it's barbaric doing this. Ugh. Right, have we got screws down there? Yep, the last couple right underneath the battery board are screws. So I'm going to bend this guy up. I think it's just the one screw actually. I think the other one has already given up. However, because it's threaded, I'll actually take that one out properly. There we go. Whew. And there's our keyboard out. How horrid. You can see all the junk that's come out of that keyboard. Oh, right. Now we clear up. So, I'm going to take off the couple of keys that are pinged off. And what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to brush all of this down. So I'll get my toothbrush. I'll just brush all of this horridness off. I'm going to brush it just onto my desk, and then I'll clean my desk. And actually, you know, this case wants cleaning up as well. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the display assembly after all. I should have done this before we took the keyboard off, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's get the rest of this off though, because as I say, I need to clean up the chassis of this laptop here as well, because there's just so much junk. So I need a T8. And then the T5 for these two little screws here and here. And all the two little screws do is they hold in these tiny little bits of metal that just close the gap at the edge of the hinges. Because Apple over-engineering. There we go. There's our display assembly out. So now I've got just the bare laptop chassis, which makes it a lot easier to handle. And in fact, I'm even going to unplug the trackpad up at this end, and then that's just one less cable. There we go. Now all that's in here is just the battery and the trackpad, and that obviously makes it much easier for me to pick up and handle this thing. So now I can get and clean it all out properly. Let's get rid of all of this, then we'll do a little bit more cleaning. I'm going to use my toothbrush. I'm going to spritz some ordinary window cleaner onto the toothbrush. And I'm just going to use this to go over all these edges and get rid of all of this horrid nastiness. You can use isopropyl alcohol for this as well, or rubbing alcohol. However, I find glass cleaner is a more effective cleaning agent. So if you're going on to just bare metal, not electronics or anything like that, the glass cleaner will be much more effective. Okay, there we go. That's the worst of it. So there's still a bit of schmutz around the inside edges here, but, you know, I'm not going to sterilize this thing. We'll be here all day. We've got the worst of it off, so it's no longer a health hazard at the very least. Cool. Let's get the new keyboard. So, as I mentioned, I get my keyboards from eBay, so just search for MacBook, in this 2015, so search for MacBook Pro 2015 space 15 for 15-inch, space keyboard space, in my case, UK for a UK layout. Notice we've got the vertical keyboard and the short left shift. So if you've got a European one or a US one, just search for the code of your country. Okay, so before we put the keyboard in, I'm just going to check that there are no rivets that just stayed in the laptop chassis. In this case, pretty much all of them have just ripped out and stayed in the old keyboard, leaving us with nice clean holes. There's a couple over here that popped out. There's 3 in a row that I'm going to see if I can get those out. So anyone who watched my video on the MacBook Air doing this, we're going to do the same rigmarole, and I'll just show you how you can remove the old studs. So where's my... So you want to get a pair of side cutters, flush side cutters, and you just grip the edge of it. And this one's right at the edge, so it's going to be a pain. And then just go flat down, grip it, and then just lever upwards. No, that's not going to come out. What about backwards? So grip it, and I'm just going to tilt backwards. There we go. That's that guy out. And this guy, I'm just pressing down on this bit just to keep it flush. There we go. So what I'm doing is I'm levering off of the back of the cutters. So pinch in, press down and tilt back, and out it comes. There we go. Now we've got nice clean holes. So you need to go over and remove any of the studs that are left behind. It doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2 left over, that's fine. But the more you remove, the more screws we can put back into the keyboard afterwards. And the more screws that you put back into the keyboard, the better the fitment will be. So that is all hunky-dory. Good. All right, I'm happy with that. I can see like there's another one there. I mean, you know what? There we go. Right. Okay, that's all of them. Let's put the keyboard in. And just make sure that that can sit flat. It'll be trying to lift up at the moment because it's not held in by anything, but just make sure that there's nothing blocking it. Yeah, that all feels good. Cool. Right, now in order to get this guy to stay in again, obviously we can't put those rivets back in. So in the old days, I used to actually try and put those rivets back in, and you can do some kind of job. You can recover all the rivets from the old one, you can put them in and just basically just hammer them back in. However, I found a better method for that. I'm getting pretty low on these now. If you jump on eBay and you search for MacBook Pro keyboard screws, you can buy these tiny little screws that were used on the old MacBook keyboards where they screwed in. And these guys will just screw straight into these holes, no problem. Because this is soft aluminium, these steel screws will just tap straight into the aluminium. So I think I've got enough to do another keyboard left here. We don't need to put a screw in every single hole. That's overkill. So we'll just put in as many as we can, and we should end up with something that's pretty good. So I've just emptied those out into a tidy little pile. And now we'll pick up a screw, and I'm going to start out just by putting one in each corner, and then I'm going to go around the edge of the keyboard and put a screw in every other hole. Because I don't know if I've got enough screws, we're just going to do in half of them first of all. And then once we've got half of them in, we'll just populate as many other holes as we can. If you're ever stripping down laptops or throwing them out, just strip all the screws out of them and keep them in a pot. These are all just random MacBook screws. And it just means that when you're in a pinch like now, you've just got a tiny little stash of screws that you can raid, which might just be exactly what you need to finish the job. Obviously, at some point, I had a handful left of them, and I just chucked them into here. Okay, right, now we've got to put it all back together again. So, we'll start with the new keyboard backlight. So that's going to go in this way round, and we're going to just peel off all of the backings for this. There we go, and we'll just get this guy positioned in. So when I'm aiming this, there are a couple of points where we're going to get it lined up. There's a hole here, hole there, I think, and we've got a hole on the left-hand side here as well. So we want to get those lined up. That's how we're going to know when this thing is in position. This is one of the trickier ones. The non-retinas are easier than this. Get you in. There we go. And now I'll use my prying tool. I'm just going to use the blunt end of this to just gently go around underneath here. Just going around, just positioning the backlight down. This doesn't have to be a work of art. This seal around the outside serves two purposes. It locks more light in, and because it's a seal around the edge, it adds liquid resistance. So if you get a spill onto the keyboard, less of the liquid will leak through into the laptop itself, and is one of the very few liquid resistant properties that these laptops actually have. However, it's mostly jeopardized entirely by the fact that the vent at the back is entirely open. But hey, it's better than nothing. Just go around and stick all that down. There we go. Let's get off this backing as well. So now we're starting to put in bits of the laptop. For each bit I put in, I'm just going to brush it down with either a paintbrush or a toothbrush, just so we're taking off all of the dust and the schmutz and stuff. We're just taking that off of everything as it goes back in. So these are just stuck down, so I'll just push that down and then screws back into place. So back onto the T5, and is that plastic cover going to stick back down? Yeah. I'll just roughly put that over there, just so if I drop the screwdriver or something, it's not going to fall across battery terminals. Okay, I'm going to put the display assembly back on now. I haven't cleaned the display assembly, but I'll go over this thing when we've finished with the laptop, because the display assembly, I actually find it's easier to clean those when they're on the laptop already. And I'm just going to put in one screw on each side, and then we'll close the screen. And I'm going to do an alignment check, so I'm just going to go around the edges of the laptop with my fingers to make sure the screen is straight. And because these are display hinge screws, I give them just a bit of a grr. Okay, I'm going to get a couple of Q-tips and just clean the thermal paste off of this guy. Right, I'll just squirt a bit of isopropyl alcohol onto here just to help break up the thermal grease. This stuff is electrically safe. It is technically conductive, but it's such a high resistor that it serves no threat to the electronics, and it evaporates very quickly without leaving a residue, which is why isopropyl is safe. Window and glass cleaner is much more conductive, but it also evaporates without a residue, which is why this stuff is also reasonably electrically safe. But isopropyl is better, so yeah. I'm just trying to get the worst of it off with the Q-tip, just so I don't spread it around everywhere, because I've been caught out by this before on these MacBook Pros. When you try and wipe this stuff off, or if you use a toothbrush, it just splatters across the board, which is doesn't really matter, but it's not very tidy. I don't like Q-tips because they don't hold anything. That's the problem. However, I'm just trying them out again. I'm going to go back to my good old-fashioned favourite of loo roll. Oh, but it'll leave fluff, I hear you say. Yeah, well, we'll just brush that off. It's not going to hurt anything. There we go. I don't need to go really deep into all the edges of these. Now for the cooling system, again, we're going to use isopropyl just to break down that thermal grease. And then I'll be attacking these fin stacks with the glass cleaner because that's a much more aggressive cleaner. Okay, right, these guys are much cleaner than they were before, so I'm going to put the logic board back into the laptop now, and then once it's in the laptop, we'll get some fresh thermal paste onto the CPU and GPU and get that heatsink refitted. The keyboard flex is designed to fold back on itself like that and then go into the laptop. So I'll just take off this bit of double-sided tape that they've pre-fitted to it, and we'll just fold that backwards. And that will serve the extra purpose of just keeping that out the way while I get the logic board back in. Just want to be careful where I put the fold just to make sure I don't accidentally tear the ribbon, because that would be bad. There we go. Right, so this is going to go all the way up to the edge, so we'll feed in the ports first. Battery, speaker connector, the backlight is clear. Where are my... There's the microphone cable. Let's just get you back out. There we go. And give it a bit of a wiggle. So we had 2 long boys at the back and 2 short boys there and there. And then we've got another 2 short boys that just go onto the MagSafe connector. Oh, heck. I forgot to put the air trays back in. These guys are supposed to go in first. I can still fit them in, but we're probably going to have to back out the screws. Right, and now before I go any further, I've just remembered we've got one of these screw holes has come off of the laptop. So I am going to put this back on because I'm feeling brave, and I've done this before. So I'm going to warm up my soldering iron, and I need just a little bit of sandpaper just to sand back the back of this guy so I can actually solder it. Since I don't have any sandpaper on hand, I'm going to stick it in a vise, and I'm going to use my fiberglass pen on it instead. And I've got to vise it up because you don't want to get a fiberglass pen anywhere near your fingers, because fiberglass pens are nasty. So a fiberglass pen, it's a pen like this, and when you turn the end of it, it's got a turning end. A length of just fiberglass strands comes out, and these guys are super abrasive. You don't want to get fiberglass fibers into your fingers or anything like that. Nasty stuff. Very good for just buffing stuff up though. So I'm just going to scratch away at that with the fiberglass pen, and it'll just rough up the surface of it. There we go. So we've just primed the back of that, so now that will adhere to solder. And I'm going to do just a little bit of the same onto the hole that we're soldering onto. Going to be a bit more gentle because we're on the logic board now. Flux. Just going to tin up my tip a bit as well because that guy needs a bit of love. There we go. Right, and I'm just going to get a blob of solder onto that. Just run that around the edge. There we go. And I need to protect the back of the... Damn, I needed to do this while the board was out of the case. Okay, let's go. So we've got 400 degrees, maximum airflow. And I'm just going to preheat the area. I'm trying to avoid the wireless card. Don't think we need to take that guy out. I've just got to get some heat into the board around this area. I'm going to keep an eye on that. As soon as that solder is melting, we're ready to go. I'm blowing toward my hand here, which is inconvenient. There it goes. Okay, let's get that guy on. Ah, damn it. Too much air. As soon as you're blowing stuff away, just back off on the airflow, go in a little bit closer. So the board is up to temperature, so now we're just going in close, and we're just going to wait for that to melt. There we go. Press down. Move away. And as you can see, the excess solder has just squeezed out the side as a little solder ball. And we can just go... Oh, that guy doesn't want to come off. Fine, we'll get that with a soldering iron. And boop. A little bit of alcohol all over that area. And I'll just scrub away the flux residue. There we go. Ended up being the alcohol that just destroyed that pad, but yeah, no one cares about that pad. It does nothing. Good. There we go. And now we've reattached that screw point and that's soldered on. So if these screw points come off, because like as I say, this was a fan one, this was not mission critical. I could have left this off and just left one screw out of the fan. It would have been fine. However, I've demonstrated this because when you're doing this, it might be one of these guys that comes off around your CPU. And if one of these guys comes off, that's got to go back on because your CPU is not going to get proper cooling if you don't have all 4 hold down points attached. So yeah, now you know how to do it. Bit scary doing this kind of stuff because you do need a lot of heat onto the board. However, absolutely doable. Let's get this back in the case again. Cool, I'm going to start going around and plugging stuff back in now. We'll get the fans on, get the I/O board back in, and we'll be most of the way there, I think. Right, we're ready for a heatsink. Thermal paste I use is Arctic MX4. It's a well-priced, decent thermal paste. More than what you need for this kind of application. I'm just going to put a little blob on each die. A bit more on the CPU because it's a bigger die. And now, when we put the heatsink on, that will just smush out all of that paste. And each one of these screws, I'm just going to put a couple of turns into it, just so I can loose fit everything. And then as I'm putting all the screws in, it means that the heatsink can just move around and shift just so it settles in a comfortable position before I actually screw everything down for realsies. It's hard to do that with the CPU ones because these spring clips have actually got a modest amount of tension on them. And then we've got a silver boy that goes up at the right-hand side, or that'll be the right-hand side. And then this random guy with the big hat on it goes over on the left. And he's got a little rubber stopper on top of him. Right, that is looking good, so I'm going to tighten all of these down to the stops now. I'm not going to graunch these up, just turning them until they stop. If you try and tighten these, you'll probably tear the screw holes off of the logic board, and then you'll have to do all of that soldering work. Okay, we are drawing to a completion. I'm now starting to look around the board, and I'm looking for stuff that is missing. These little rubber bits, these will just flap about unless you just put some new sticky pads on them, but that doesn't matter. These are just air guides. You've got hot air coming out from here, and these rubber guides, the case will press into those and it prevents the hot air from getting recycled back into the fan again. So it ensures that the fans are only pulling in cold air from inside the laptop and then expelling it out the back. Good, okay, I think we're good. I'm going to stick the back cover on this. And that's it, everyone. Thank you for joining me on that journey. This is all done. It's got a lovely shiny new keyboard on it. Everything is fitted. We had a couple of hiccups along the way, but we resolved them as we go. It's not a small job, this one. However, it's absolutely doable. Hopefully, this marathon of a video has just shown off the little pitfalls that you can run into and just how to steer around them if you do hit them. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.